I was playing for the first 15 in school, playing full back, not a very good one. We were very new school because you're a Welsh school, because the grammar schools were phased out in Wales, and then you had a choice to do your education either through the medium of English or through the medium of Welsh. So obviously I did mine through the medium of Welsh because Welsh is my first language, and I couldn't speak English till I was about 7-8 years of age, and learnt it in school. So the school that I went to was a pretty new school, so we were quite low on numbers for the first 3 or 4 years of the intake. So there was only a bare 15 of us when we got to sort of 16, 17 in school, playing for the first 15, so otherwise I wouldn't have had my place. I was playing full back, and we hadn't won a game all season and lost quite a few games quite heavily. And we were playing the last game of the season down in Carmarthen against a school, Griffith Jones in St. Clair's. And one of my mates was playing centre, Wayne Thomas, and he scored a try right underneath the post at the end of the game, last play of the game, took the score to 12-all. And then one of my best mates was captain, so I said to my best mate, the captain, I said, look, I'll kick this now, the conversion, right in front of the post. I'll kick it over, first win of the season, last game of the season, I'll be a hero in school. So I lined it up, and the ball went closer to the corner flag than it did between the uprights. And the game finished 12-all. My mates didn't speak to me for a week, and the sports teacher, John Bynan, the late John Bynan, unfortunately, passed away about 15 years ago now, actually. And he said to me, he said, "Oh, Nigel," he said, "for God's sake," he said in Welsh, "God's sake, will you go and referee or something, will you?" And that's what I did, actually, because my sort of school was a very small school, and Kieran Hardy was playing here the last couple of years with Jersey, was in my sort of school in the same village where I come from.
So was it a case of when you actually started refereeing, the bug bit you immediately?
Yeah, it was really. When I started refereeing some games in school and then a couple of locals games, and I was enjoying it. I wasn't refereeing every Saturday because I was working on a farm back then, after I left school. And so sort of Saturdays, you'd be working. But I always enjoyed it, and it didn't sort of, I suppose, as the years progressed, did you realise that you were getting better at it and the opportunities were coming your way, and those opportunities I never at one stage thought, right, I want to referee a World Cup or a World Cup final. That happened as you got closer to that level of the game, really. But I really enjoyed it from the beginning, really. There's been a few games over the years, particularly when you're starting off, which don't go well, and you're driving home and you're thinking to yourself, why the hell am I doing this for? And you feel like chucking your boots out of the window of the car, but no, you soon get over that and keep enjoying it.
Can you remember your debut, your first senior game that you refereed?
Yeah, I did. I was 16 when I started reffing, and so my dad, not a very good driver, so he couldn't drive very far. So I told the fixture secretary who was appointing to the games in Llanelli District, Alan West, I said to him, look, I'm ready to start reffing, senior level now, second 15s, but don't send me too far because I can't drive yet, and my dad can't drive and take me far. My uncle then, who was to take me then, couldn't take me every Saturday. So anyway, one of the first games of the season comes, Tregaron against Nancaredig, which was about 45 miles in the back beyond of nowhere, so there's no way I could get there. So I told him, look, how am I going to get there? So the fixture said, look, don't worry, I've sorted out with the away club, which is a bit closer to where I live. It was only about 6-7 miles away. You can have a lift with them on the bus. So my first senior game, I had a lift with the away team on the bus. I climbed out the back exit of the bus about 400 yards before the clubhouse so that they wouldn't see me arriving at the bus, refereed the game, and the away team won, funnily enough. They won 9-6. Last penalty of the game, a legitimate penalty, I will add. And back to the clubhouse afterwards, everything was fine, no complaints or anything. And then the bus is ready to go, and the captain of the away team goes, "Come on, Nigel, bus is ready." And I thought, oh, shit. And then obviously I get on the bus and you could see all the away team supporters waving their arms in the air and sticking fingers up to me, and as the bus was driving off. So that was my experience of my first senior game, really.
Now, there's been so many games since. Is it easy to say what's the most memorable game, or is it a simple case that various ones stand out for different reasons?
Yeah, it is very difficult because many games will stand out for different reasons. Your first big first-class senior game, for example, which was Swansea against Caerphilly before it went to sort of regional rugby and before it went to the Celtic League and the Pro 14 and Pro 12. And that was actually Gavin Henson's first debut as well in the first-class team of Swansea back then, with Scott Gibbs and all those playing as well. So that was something special. And then my first European Cup final then in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff between Munster and Toulouse. My first Six Nations match, England, Italy and Twickenham. And then games like Munster, Leinster-Munster in Croke Park in Dublin in 2009, the semi-final of the European Cup. Massive game, 83,500 packed in Croke Park. Munster were the kings of Europe, and Leinster beat them that day, and then Leinster started their golden era then of winning 2 or 3 European Cups after that, and they've gone on to win more now since. So there's games that stand out for different reasons, but yeah, if I had to choose one or two, I think the World Cup final would be the first choice, because obviously, it's the biggest game in world rugby, and when you get to do that, it's a huge honour and privilege which very, very few of us get. So that would be the standout one. But then as far as games go, South Africa, New Zealand in 2013, which many people say is the best game of rugby they've seen. But after saying that, then, I was very fortunate to be part of New Zealand, South Africa on the weekend out in Wellington, which ended 34-32, which was another epic game of rugby between the two. So those two now would be up there as well as as the occasions. But yeah, the World Cup final would be the one if you had to choose one, obviously.
I was about to say, you have just come back from Wellington where the South Africans pulled off an unlikely victory. What was that game like to be involved? Because it was a hell of a game.
It was one hell of a game. As I said, I was involved in the one in 2013, which was a hell of a game. But this was a hell of a game as well, but a different game. The 2013 game probably had more movement in it, more tries scored from a further distance, and maybe better quality of tries scored on that day maybe, and counter-attacks and back and forth. But then this game on Saturday was a different nail-biter of a game, because the one in 2013 ended about, I think, 9 or 12 points difference. So when you're refereeing a game and there's 9-12 points difference towards the end of the game, there's a lot less pressure on you when you're refereeing a game knowing there's only 2 points in it, and the next decision you make is either going to win or lose a team a game. And if you get that wrong, it's huge, massive pressure. So the game of the weekend was probably bigger pressure, I would think, for the last 20 minutes, particularly with the score so close. And, New Zealand had 75% possession compared to South Africa's 25%. So, you could see that the way the game was unfolding was South Africa's defence, for the last 25 minutes, and New Zealand on attack at a time, and you're just going to make sure that all the decisions you make are as accurate as you possibly can make them in that situation. So it was one hell of a test match to be involved in. Absolutely, I came off that game on Saturday absolutely physically and mentally drained. That's how demanding the game was, but it was a great game.
A little insight there into your mind. You reeled off all the stats there about possession this Sunday. That's something you're acutely aware of while the game's going on?
No, you're not aware at the time. You're aware in the game, of a penalty count, for example, if there's a lot of penalties against one side, because then obviously you need then to be aware, well, as this side has given a lot of penalties away, I may need to have a look at a yellow card here, I need to speak to the captain here to give them a warning that if it continues it could be a card. So you're aware of, penalties in that sense, but you're not aware of, possession and stuff like that. You are aware, that one side is actually, attacking quite a lot of the time, so that they're on top for that period of time, and who's defending, who's attacking and stuff. So you're aware of stuff like that, and your assistant referees will help you as well, and saying, look, that's so many penalties now in the 22 against this side. So you're aware of stuff like that because you need to be to referee the game. But as far as the sort of possession and territory and stuff like that, you're not aware of them until you get the stats after the game. You're not aware. There was something like 240 tackles in that game, and I think over 200 of them were made by South Africa. So that says a lot of it. But you're not aware of those stats at the game, no.
You're very highly regarded as a referee. Now, tell us what it is about refereeing that you think is the most important thing that has enabled you to have the relationship that you do with the players on the field during the game.
I think that gets built up over time, I think, with your experience as a referee, your ability as a referee, and the players being able to trust you as a referee. I think one of the biggest compliments I ever had, And I've had quite a few players actually. It was Ryan Jones telling me once before a big Welsh derby between the Blues and the Ospreys in the City Stadium in Cardiff. It was about 25,000 crowd there, and it was a massive game. Then the two sides were fully loaded, and the Ospreys, had Justin Marshall and the big guns playing, and the Blues had Martin Williams and Jamie Roberts and the big guns playing as well. So it was a massive Welsh derby. And I remember Ryan Jones telling me before the game, as captain of the Ospreys, he said, "Well, when I'm glad you're reffing the game because we can just concentrate on the game now and not have to worry about who's reffing it or the way it's going to be refereed. We know that you'll do your best, and we may not like some of the decisions you give, but we'll trust you to do the right decision. So the boys and I can just go on and play the game." And I think that's the biggest compliment you can get as a referee, I think. And I suppose that sort of contributes then with time and with your experience in the game. And as like on the weekend in Wellington, the two teams just got on and played the game. There was no foul play in the game. There was no complaining about decisions, and there was some big decisions to be made in that game, especially in the last 20 minutes or so, and the players just accepted it and got on with the game. And I think that says a lot then, that of their trust in you as a referee, I think. And getting that balance right is important. The laws are there for a reason. They will help contribute to a type of game, a flowing game. But you need to get the balance right. And getting the balance right is the most difficult thing to get. The better you're at it, the more experienced you are, then the better you are at getting that balance. And it's getting the balance between actually blowing the whistle and knowing when not to blow it. The easy job in refereeing is to go out there and blow the whistle. The difficult job is going out there and knowing when not to blow the whistle. And if you can get the balance right between refereeing and empathy, then you're halfway there. Then that then comes down to you can't make a good game as a referee. You can contribute to it, and you can certainly spoil a good game, but you can't make a bad game good. So it comes down inevitably in the end to the players' attitude on that field, wanting to play a positive game is what makes the game. You will contribute to that. And you can contribute in a negative way if you're not refereeing well, because you can then stifle the game if you're not allowing a flow to it. But you can never make a good game, you can never make a bad game good, but you can make a good game bad if you don't referee it well. And that's why I think, even though you contribute to a game as a referee, all the credit, quite rightly so, needs to go to the players, because they're the ones who go out there and play and make the game.
How much does respect play a part in you being able to do your job?
A huge amount, I think, particularly in rugby as a sport, because rugby is such a huge physical game. Some of the hits on that field are massive, so you need the respect between players and opponents to get on and play that game. Imagine somebody smashing you to the ground where you actually hurt, and then you've got to brush yourself off and get up. If somebody did that to you on the street, then you'd be chasing them down the street, wouldn't you? So rugby needs that respect, because it's such a physical game, and that value and ethos of respect, and particularly as well for a referee as well, and that, I think, is one of the most important values and ethos of the game, is that value of respect, so that the referee can go out there and do his job, and that's a huge important part of the game, I think, and something that we must treasure and do all we can to hold on to.
I just wanted to sort of segue on from respect, because I know that you're a patron for Bullies Out, which is obviously a cause that's very dear to your heart. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was approached about quite a few years ago now. It was 6-7 years ago maybe, if I'd be a patron of Bullies Out charity in Cardiff, because I'd spoken in my book about the experience of being bullied in school myself, and the mental health issues and stuff that then evolves and comes from that. And I was sort of more than happy then to put my name to it and support them in any way I can, because I feel very passionate about a lot of causes, but any good cause is worth supporting, whether you feel passionately about it or is it something that you know a lot about or not. But obviously, having experienced the bullying myself when I was in school, and knowing a lot of other people who go through the same experiences of being bullied as well, because it ruins lives. Bullying does. It's particularly as a young person in school, it can ruin your life. It can ruin the track that you take in life. It affected my education in school, and not that I think I would have probably finished school any more intelligent than I did, but it is, I think it is a huge issue in all walks of life, not only for young people in school, but in all walks of life for adults as well. So it is something I think we all need to be a part of, to stamp out, because a lot as well, there are a lot of bad people who are bullies, but then there are a lot of good, decent people who are bullies as well, which they probably don't know they are bullying, in ignoring friends in school or having a little dig, and get involved in a crowd and in the wrong crowd, and then they sort of, become a bit nasty to other kids where they're not really nasty people, and they grow out of that stage. So, not all bullies are bad people. A lot of them are bullying without really knowing it's happening. So raising awareness as well, I think, is hugely important as well.